I'm Dr. Tom Hollenstein. I'm the director of the Adolescent Dynamics Lab here at Queen's University. We do research here on the development of psychopathology, which means looking at both typical and atypical ways that children become adolescents, become adults. In particular, we focus on the emotional aspects of that development and how emotions are regulated or otherwise managed or controlled. And this is something that children learn as they get older, but there are a lot of individual differences in how people regulate their emotions, and we're most interested in those individual differences. In particular, what leads to good outcomes and what leads to bad outcomes. And so to do that, we employ a wide array of innovative methodological techniques. We also have begun taking what we've known about how emotion regulation can be used effectively and trying to intervene in samples of youth and try and improve their emotion regulation skills so that they won't develop problems down the road. In the Adolescent Dynamics Lab, there are four main pillars of training. The first is, from day one, all graduate students are treated as colleagues in training, that we are collaborators working together. The only difference is you don't have the skills yet, but that's part of the training, and through iterations of working on research projects and papers and presentations, that collaboration becomes more and more equal over time.
One example of how Tom treats his students as future colleagues is how my research program started to take shape. So when I started at the lab and I expressed my interest in looking at parent-child emotion dynamics, Tom wasn't currently running any studies of that nature at that time, and he didn't really have a plan to do that in the immediate future. However, after several meetings, he helped me take my ideas very seriously, and he even applied for a small grant to support the research that I wanted to do for my master's work.
So something I really like about working with Tom is that there's this level of respect for our opinions and our ideas, because he doesn't just see us as students just working in the lab, making photocopies and doing things like that. He really sees us as his colleagues who are just working and training to get to the same place that he's at. So he really values what we bring to the table, and I think that's really appreciated in our lab.
The second pillar is that my goal for every graduate student is to be at the top of the pile. That means being at the top of the pile for fellowship applications, funding, for any sort of publication going for the highest impact journals, and also for anything that comes after, for postdoc, for any jobs, that the target is to do all of the things for the 6 years that you're here to give you as many opportunities as possible.
So there's a big focus in the lab on being at the top of the pile, or really standing out amongst your colleagues and your peers. So one of the ways in which I think this lab does a really great job of that is there's a goal to publish at least one paper per year of graduate training. So I feel that that gives a really competitive advantage compared to your peers, and that especially in your first year, you kind of hit the ground running.
Another thing that I really like about being in this lab is that Tom really caters our graduate school experience to each person. So he spends a lot of time figuring out exactly what it is that we care about and exactly what it is that we're passionate about, and he really helps us figure out what it is that we want to do once we're done grad school, like how to combine all those passions and interests and figure out what career path would make the most sense for those things. And then he does a really great job of figuring out ways to find us experiences and find us opportunities to make sure that when we're done grad school, we're the best possible candidate for that job, or the top of the pile, as he always says.
The third pillar is that the Adolescent Dynamics Lab functions as a team. And so we work together as a team. People share projects, are helping each other by teaching techniques that they know to each other. It goes across undergraduate and graduate levels. There are big projects and take a lot of personnel to pull off. And so we work collectively as a team, and the goal is to make each other great, to really support each other in doing the best work possible.
Our lab is a really great place to be. We currently have 4 students in the lab, and some students are working on the same projects, others are working on different projects, but either way, it doesn't matter. We support each other in a lot of different ways no matter what. Some examples of the ways we support each other include we give feedback to each other when we're writing. We watch each other practice presentations to give at conferences, and we even help each other troubleshoot with the inevitable challenges that can come up when we are collecting data in the lab.
I know initially when I came to graduate school I was a bit nervous and anxious about what to expect, but my lab mates and especially Tom were really great in terms of answering any questions that I had, making me feel really welcome in Kingston, and just helping me to acclimatize to the program.
The final pillar, because of working as a team, we need to communicate, and we need to communicate effectively with each other and scientifically. And so I spend a lot of energy directing and giving feedback about presentations and particularly scientific writing, about the kinds of output that is really the goal of what we're doing. We get money from the public, and in return we disseminate information about what we've learned. And that's a really important piece to what we do in the Dynamics Lab.
So another thing that I really like about being in this lab, and something that I've really come to really value, is that there's this really great open level of communication between all the grad students as well as with Tom. So whether it's anything personal or professional, I know that I can always turn to the people in my lab, including Tom, and I know that they're just personally invested, and so they would be there for me no matter what it was. And another great thing is that whenever Tom and I are working on papers, or if I'm doing a funding application, his level of communication is just so wonderful, so I get feedback almost instantly on everything that we're working on, and it just makes everything so much easier, and it makes these really stressful things just so much less stressful.
Communication is a really key part in our lab. For example, we have one-to-one weekly meetings with Tom just to touch base on how our research is going, on future opportunities that we've heard of and we want his advice on, and as well just talking about kind of what's going on in our lives, which to me, talking about all of those things is really valuable, because it's not just always all about the research. He cares about each of us and each of his grad students as individual people as well.
So we're looking for new students who want to be part of this dynamic team, who are looking to make a difference, to really understand what's happening with people's emotional lives and how that's having an impact on their relationships and their self-efficacy as they become adolescents and adults. So please apply if you're interested.